the typical student in me thinks, brilliant, day off, an extra day for studying. It is, after all, smack bang in the middle of my Christmas exams. I tell some of my friends around me, and
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the ISSU webinar town hall event. Hopefully you can see us now. The idea is that this will all be online and streamed. This is the event. We know that right now a lot of students are in a very difficult time. It's very stressful. We didn't think we'd be online learning at this point in time, but we are. We are aware that this is not the same as in-person learning and that there are real challenges that come with that. I want you to know that we are working for you. Today, the event, we're hoping to cover two things. One, we want to create a forum in which students can communicate with us what they are feeling, the challenge they are facing in one, online learning, the return to school, and more also what's on everyone's minds, the state exams, the junior cert and the leaving cert. We cannot forget either. What will we be covering today? And I'll lay out the agenda to you now. First off, we have an introduction to the ISSU. Many of you don't know that you are members of the ISSU and that we're your union. We're here to let you know who we are and how you can get involved, and more importantly, that we're here to help you when you need us. And it's times like these when we really matter. Next, our welfare officer will discuss student well-being and how we're trying to tackle and improve and make sure that students' mental health is catered to when we look at online school. After that, we're going to look at the closure of schools and online learning. That will be covered by Saskia Eef, our regional officer from Monaghan, and our equality officer on the national executive, Saoirse Exton. Finally, after that, practicals and orals alongside projects. This is something that is a very immediate stress to a lot of students. Their economics project, art practicals alongside the DCG project. These are very immediate deadlines that are worrying people, and we are here to make sure that we can bring some clarity where we can and let you know what we are doing. After that, finally, our National Education Officer, Alicia, alongside our second regional officer from Monaghan, Adam, will discuss the state exams and what we are doing there. We're hoping to let you know what actions we are doing, how we are advocating and representing you, and to let you know that we are at the table voicing your opinions. So I'm going to start in to explain to you what actually is the ISSU. First off, who am I? My name is Ruben Murray, and I'm the president of the Irish Second Level Students' Union. I was elected in May 9th last year at the national executive elections that take part at the annual assembly. The ISSU stands for the Irish Second Level Students' Union. We are students who are elected by our peers to take action and represent them at a national level. Instead of lobbying and representing to individual schools or principals, we represent the Minister of Education, the Department of Education, the government. We work with the teachers' unions, the principals' associations. This is the work we do. We are elected every year from the ground up. We have 40 regional officers spread out across the country whose job is to work directly with you. And then the national executive takes on campaigns to improve the lives of students. At moments like these, this is where student voice really matters and where we all need to work together. And that's what the ISSU is. We are a central, democratic, representative space for students to voice their opinions and let themselves be heard. The point of this evening today, I'm going to hang over now to our welfare officer, Matthew Ryan. He's going to let you know what's going on. This is not the last you'll hear of us, not by any means. We are at the table and we are working for you. Our Instagram is at ISSU for you. If you message us, we have a team and we will try to get back to everyone. Do not let this be the last time you hear from us. Stay in contact and we'll be regular updates on our Instagram feed. Matthew Ryan, if you want to come in and let us know what the ISSU is doing for student welfare.
Brilliant. So hello everyone, my name is Matthew Ryan and like Ruben said, I'm the welfare officer of the Irish Second Level Students' Union. I use he, him pronouns, and I suppose today I'm just going to run through a little bit about kind of student well-being and how you can look after yourselves kind of during lockdown, which is so important at the moment, especially with online school going on. I'm going to talk a little bit then about kind of what ISSU is doing for student well-being and for student mental health, especially at this time, because I know it's a huge concern of many people and many students who've been reaching out to us, and rightfully so, because it is a massive part of any decision going forward, and it should be. So I'm going to start maybe by just kind of explaining what I'm going to be talking about. So I'm going to be talking about kind of why it's important to look after yourself, why it's really important to have a strong mentality going forward, and how to upkeep that strong mentality going forward into the next couple of months, because it is going to be a tough few months and moving forward with, I suppose, lockdown and obviously what's happening with the state exams. It's not going to be easy for anyone. So it's really important to look after yourselves. I'm going to be talking about as well kind of why it's important to keep active in some way, whether that be walking, cycling, swimming, whatever it is you do. Just really simple things and kind of a few tips and tricks. And then kind of at the end, I'll go through a few resources and helplines, I suppose, that people can use. Before I kind of get started, I do just want to say I am going to be talking about a few topics that some people might find difficult to listen to, things around mental health, so a few mental health disorders, things like that. So if you have any difficulty listening to any of those things or hearing about them, please do feel free to click off the live just while I'm talking about them, and you can always join back. So yeah, feel free to do that. So I suppose the first thing I'm going to start on is just kind of talking about what is mental health and what is well-being. So mental health includes our emotional, our psychological, and our social well-being. So it basically really kind of affects how we live our lives and kind of what way we tackle each day and how we, I suppose, dictate ourselves as a person. And everyone's is different, and there's no one specific type of mental health, and there's no right or wrong type of mental health. I suppose with the state exams, you know, it has been a very stressful time for students, and with school closures and with COVID and you're stuck at home. So looking after that mental health is very important. Mental health also kind of I suppose, dictates how we interact with people, which is very different now that we're online. Like you see us here now, we're doing a live stream Zoom. So it's very taxing to be kind of interacting with people in a very different way from what we're used to. So it is a stressful time for students, and that isn't going unnoticed. And I know a lot of you have reached out to me and have reached out to the executive and all the regional officers. A very big concern of yours, and it's one that has come up, I think, in nearly every email we've gotten, is how stressed students are. So hopefully the tips and tricks that I share do come of some benefit to you, and I suppose maybe help you in some way to look after yourselves. So I suppose, what can you do if you think that you are suffering from some sort of mental illness or some sort of mental disorder? Well, the first thing that you need to do is stay calm. Panicking and I suppose thinking that there's something wrong, that isn't going to help. It's going to make you stressed. There is nothing wrong. There's absolutely nothing wrong. Make sure to stay calm. Make sure to then talk to someone that you trust. So that could be a parent, that could be a sibling, that could be your brother, your sister, anyone that you trust, and just share that with them and say, look, I'm really struggling at the minute. Can you help? Can I talk to you? Then the next thing is to use the helplines and use the services available to you. Lots of people will need professional help, and that is completely normal. Lots of people visit psychologists or therapists to help them work through their mental health. It's the exact same as when you visit a GP for your physical health. Then the last thing is to make sure not to self-diagnose. When you think that you have some sort of mental illness, you need to seek that professional help. You need to make sure that you're getting the help that you need so that you're safe. So that was stay calm, talk to someone you trust, use the helplines and services, and try not to self-diagnose. Next thing that I'm going to be talking about is just kind of ways that you can improve your mental health or maintain a good mental health. So there are hundreds, and the bottom line is doing things that you enjoy. That's cooking, cleaning, running, cycling, fresh air, listening to music. I have loads of them. You could anything basically that you enjoy, that brings you some sort of, I suppose, enjoyment at these times, is a brilliant way of looking after your mental health. And it would be different for everyone. No one is going to have the same answer for that question if I were to pose it to you. In what way do you look after your mental health? Everyone's going to say something different. So it's about finding something that you enjoy and then making a specified time to do that. So again, could be anything, but make sure that you are leaving room in your life to do that, because at the minute it's very difficult, because we wake up at 9, we go to our classes, we're at our desk from 9 till 4. It's very easy to kind of get stuck in that rhetoric of just sitting down and doing the same thing day in, day out. But it is very important to set aside some time to do the things that you enjoy, and to get some exercise, get some fresh air, things like that. The next thing then is just communicating your mental health, which isn't always easy. It's very difficult for some people. It's sometimes hard to find the right words, especially with parents. That's one thing I find. A lot of parents, I suppose, they grew up in an age where mental health wasn't as talked about as it is now. So it can be very difficult to find those words. So it's important to take your time, make sure that you're comfortable, make sure that you're safe before you do. If it's too intimidating to talk to someone face to face, you can call a friend or even just send a text and say, hey, can I talk to you about something? If you think it's too difficult to maybe start directly into a conversation saying, hey, I'm struggling, can I talk to you? Start with a normal conversation. Just say, hey, how are you? And then lead from there. And then when you feel comfortable, maybe ask them, can I talk to you about something? Or would it be okay if I called you and we talked for half an hour? And it's really important to know that your friends want to be there for you, especially at the moment. You don't have to feel like if you bring your problem to them that it's going to affect them or make them really sad. It's not. Your friends want to be there for you. And imagine it from the other way around. If a friend came to you, how would you feel? It's the exact same way in reverse. So make sure that you are leaning on your friends and talking to them at this time. Next thing then, I'll just touch on this, is kind of coping with online learning in your mental health, because I know we're touching much more on online learning later on. So I suppose there's a few things to do with online learning. Like I said, it's very taxing. I know maybe it's just me, but I'm absolutely wrecked after just 1 week of online learning. Your brain is still engaged, you're still active, you're still using every part of you that you would be in school. So it is still very tiring. So a really good thing to start is with a bit of self-care. There is absolutely nothing wrong with saying, I'm taking an hour and a half off work, I'm going for a walk, I'm listening to music, I'm calling my friend, I'm not doing any work for the next hour and a half. Absolutely fine. It's absolutely so healthy to do that. And it's even healthier if you keep all of your work at your desk. So when you're working at your desk, you're working on your schoolwork. But the second you leave your desk, leave it at the desk. Leave all your work on the desk and have that designated workspace. And that's another really important point, is having a good setup. Not always easy for people. I know lots of people are sharing with siblings, and maybe you have a communal workspace, but try as much as possible to have it organized, to have what you need set out, to try and have as little clutter around as you can, just so that you can kind of focus on your work. Then another really important thing is focusing on your time management. We all know the feeling of being overwhelmed. We all know the feeling of having 17 assignments that are due in half an hour and you haven't started any of them. So it's very important to try and manage that time and keep, I suppose, a lid on it, and maybe get a diary, or I have a whiteboard in my room that I write everything down on and when it's due. And I find that it's really helpful to do that and to just keeping track of when your things are due and when everything is happening, just so that you don't get overwhelmed. Because I know myself, when I leave everything to the last minute, it's just overwhelming, and then you get stressed, and then it piles up into something much bigger than it had to be. Another thing then is, I suppose, eliminating distractions as much as you can. So if you've got your phone, try and mute it. If you've got younger siblings, try and get them to realize that you're working. I know it's not always easy for everyone, but let your family know, or whoever you're living with know, that okay, between 12 and 3 I'm going to be doing some study. So if you could keep it down a small bit, that'd be brilliant. Just again, doing the simple things just so that you can kind of focus on your work and make sure that you feel on top of things, that you feel confident in the work you're doing. And next thing then is set boundaries. So there is absolutely nothing wrong with setting boundaries if you're working with someone, or with your family, or even with your teachers. If a teacher keeps emailing you at 9 o'clock at night, it's okay for you to email them back and say, hi miss, is there any chance you could stop emailing me at 9 o'clock at night? I'm trying to relax, in a very respectful, very nice kind of way. There's no problem with doing that. That's okay, because it's unfair for students to be constantly working, and it's very difficult online to kind of dissociate from that, because you have all your school things on your laptop or your tablet or your phone, whatever you're using for school. So it's constantly with you, and it's constantly dinging, and it's constantly going. So it's very important to set those boundaries, and also set those boundaries with yourself. So say, right, between 9 and 4, that's when I work. Outside of that, I'm muting them, those apps, or I'm deleting them, or I'm turning off my laptop, things like that, so that you can get away from them. That's pretty much everything from me. I'm just going to then talk through a few kind of helplines and stuff that you can avail of at the moment during lockdown, should anyone need them. The first one, and one that I find really, really great, it's a really quick fix, it's really helpful, it's there in an instant if you need it, and that's text 50808. It's a really simple, I suppose, program where you literally take out your phone and you send a text to the number 50808, say talk, you can say hello, you can say hi, and instantly what they'll do is they'll link you through to a trained professional who you can have a conversation with over text. It's great for anything from minor crises, if you need a calming conversation, or if there's something more serious going on, and they can get you the help that you need. It's completely confidential, completely professional. And the next one then is PA to House, who deal with treatment for clients who suffer from self-harm or suicidal ideation, or things along those lines. And PA to House is a really great organization. They're really professional, and everyone who works in there, I've worked with a few of them, they're super lovely, and they give people the best care possible. And you can get them on, if you text help to 51444, that's a 24/7 helpline, or you can call 1-800-247-247. Then there's also jigsaw.ie, which is free face-to-face counseling. Well, usually face-to-face, but with COVID, it's moved online. So you get a free counselor. You can talk with them, again, trained professional psychologist. And you can find them on jigsaw.ie, or you can call 086-180-3880. Then there's a few other ones that I have heard about and have worked with, and they're brilliant. There's grow.ie, which is very similar to Jigsaw, except it will link you up with someone in the community who's gone through the same thing that you have. So say if you're struggling with depression or something along those lines, they will link you up with someone who's had the same in the past, and they can share their kind of knowledge with you, how they got through it, how they worked through it, what worked for them. So grow.ie is a really nice kind of casual one where you can just link up with another normal person who isn't a therapist or isn't a professional person just like you, and have a conversation with them. Another one then is a Lust for Life, which was founded by or co-founded by Brezzy. And basically they just give you general tips, tricks, and things like that on how to manage your mental health. I find them really great. I follow them on Instagram. They're always putting up posts of things that I find really helpful and really useful. They also have a podcast. I know our education officer has worked a good bit with them. There's also Samaritans, which you can call on 116-123. Belong to, who support LGBTQI+ youth. And they're doing a lot with, they do kind of support groups and counseling for people struggling during lockdown especially. There's Bodywise, who are a really great organization that I found for people struggling with eating disorders or disordered eating, which obviously while we're all at home is an issue for a lot more people at the minute. So I found Bodywise, that's BODYWHYS, spelled a little bit different. I find them great. And then there's the Drug and Alcohol Helpline, does what it says in the tin, and then turntome.org. So that's everything from me. If you want to contact me at any point, it's just welfare@issu.ie, and reach out to me if you want any more information on any of this, if you want information on any of the helplines I've listed off, or if you have any projects around welfare that you think you would like to work on, welfare@issu.ie, that's how you can get me. So thank you very much to everyone for listening to me. I'll now pass you on to the next person. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone. So we, the Irish Second
Thank you, Matthew. Just a note of Sorry, Saskia. Thank you, Adam. Just to add in on having a good setup, we are releasing resources for students in online learning on how to set up there. Also, if teacher is emailing you at 9 o'clock, that is not acceptable. We are releasing a Charter of Student Rights in online school. That will be released out on our Instagram, on our website, and emailed out to all schools. And this sort of thing is laid down in it. So that is something we are doing to try and protect students' rights there. The only other thing that just wasn't covered in relation to what we're doing for mental health and guidance, we will be advocating that guidance counsellors and pastoral care teams are still made available to students through online school. So that's something we will be working on from next week. Thank you. And now we will pass over to Saskia Eve, who's our Monaghan Regional Officer. Take it away, Saskia.
Hi everyone, my name is Saskia. I'm Regional Officer for Cavan Monaghan. We, the Irish Second Level Students' Union, are doing everything we can to ensure that no student gets left behind during this period of online learning. Members of the Regional Officer body and our Equality Officer, Saoirse, have started to work on a project to build a bridge between the ISSU, students with special educational needs, and those affected by the digital divide. We are aware of the challenges that many students face when accessing education, and we are doing everything we can to find solutions to these problems. If you have any questions surrounding online learning, please do not hesitate to contact us at studentvoice@issu.ie or DM us on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter at ISSU4U. We are your union, we represent you, and will do our best to make sure your voices are heard. Thank you.
If you want to come in on SEN students. Saoirse, are you there? Just while we're waiting, I will note there has been online learning guidelines that were issued by the department so students can understand them. They'll be sent out again to our website. And we've also created tutorial videos on how to use Google Classroom and how to use Microsoft Teams, but also how to use them from your phone. So you can expect these resources to be released in the next day or so. So that's something else that you can be expecting from our Instagram.
Can you hear me? I think I'm having some trouble with Wi-Fi. Yeah, perfect. Okay. Sorry about that. My Wi-Fi is a little bit faulty. Hello, I'm Saoirse. I'm the Equality Officer, and I'll be speaking a little bit about neurodiverse students, SN students, and the digital divide. It is important to remember that ISSU represents every student within our secondary school system, especially at the moment, when everything seems so hectic and focused primarily on exam years. As a quality officer, I recognise the importance of ensuring that neurodiverse students are involved in the process of guiding where our schools go over the next couple of weeks and months. Simultaneously, there are students who are being left behind by their inability to access much needed technical resources and support to participate in remote learning. It is crucial that their voices are also taken into account and that the gap created by the digital divide is bridged together. So far, ISSU has engaged with various stakeholders within the community advocating for equality for neurodiverse and SEN students and those with learning difficulties, to ensure that those students affected aren't sidelined yet again. We've created a separate section of our consultation designed entirely into neurodiverse students, especially those finding these times particularly challenging. Only through consultation will we accurately able to create statements and recommendations that properly cater to every student we represent. Another issue of equal importance is that of the digital divide. ISSU plans to advocate for safe spaces with reliable internet and broadband connections like libraries or community centres to remain open for students to attend. At the same time, we are looking to recommend practices for online tuition by the government and looking for clarification related to the fact that digital divide will be treated when schools are to be closed. During this time, it is hard to remember every student, whether they're in sixth year or transition year, are facing the biggest pandemic we've seen in over 100 years. We have to have empathy for one another, stand in solidarity, ensure that each second level student has their voice equally heard. If you have any more questions, anything to add, if you want to have your voice heard or want to be engaged in any of the equality campaigns, email me at equality@issu.ie. That's all from me.
Thank you, Saoirse. Just to reiterate what Saoirse said, from Monday, we will be advocating that libraries and rural business hubs are kept open for students who are not in a safe space or do not have access to internet at all, so that they can actually make sure that they have an equal level of online learning. Next, I'll be handing over to Eva. Eva is a regional officer, and she'll be going through projects, practicals, and orals, and also has some specific information that we can relate to you in a student-friendly way. Unfortunately, there's a lot of information that's already out there. It's just not being communicated in a way that students can understand. So this is what we're trying to do here now. Eva, take it away.
Hi everyone, I'm Eva and I'm the Cork City Regional Officer. So as Ruben said, while there's a lot of information out there about projects, practicals and orals, it's really hard to find. Let's be honest, the Department of Education State Exams Commission website isn't great, not the most student friendly. And often the information we really need is sort of buried at the end of very long PDFs. So I'm just going to take you through some of it now. Okay, as of today, now the orals and practicals are scheduled to go ahead. However, we don't have starting dates for them. Of course, due to the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic, it's unlikely that we'd be able to hold the orals and practicals as we would any other year. So the Department of Education is looking at solutions so that how we can hold the orals and practicals both safely and fairly for all students and examiners alike. For example, they've tossed out a few ideas about running the orals online, doing them during Easter. However, these are just suggestions, nothing is confirmed yet. So for many of the orals, just like as in the written exams, the coursework has been reduced, and I'm just going to take you through what's happened in some of the language subjects here. So in Irish, they've reduced it from learning 20 strat pictorials to 10. And then you get to pick these 10 yourself if you want to, or I know that some classes choose to pick them all together. You present your list of the 10 strat pictorials to your examiner at the beginning of the oral, and they'll examine you on one. In German, instead of preparing 5 picture sequences and 5 role plays, you only prepare 3. Same as in Spanish, only 3 role plays. Italian, you do 3 picture sequences but only one of them will be examined for the oral. French is a little different in that they've chosen to really focus on the structure of the oral and change it around a bit. So instead of now having a more free-flowing conversation, it's much more structured. The students will be examined on 3 set topics, questions will be asked around it, and then after that you have the option to do the document. In terms of Japanese, you prepare 2 topic cards instead of 3, and 3 picture sequences instead of 4. In Russian, the discursive conversation options have been reduced, and if you choose to do the picture sequences, you only learn 3 of them. So that's just sort of a brief overview of what's happening with the orals. If you want to find out more information, what you can do is you can go to the SEC website, click on the school section, and underneath it is an option labeled oral examinations. And then you can sort of scroll through and get more detail on the subjects you're taking. In terms of practicals, once again, as of now, these are supposed to go ahead, but we don't have the start dates. And if you're looking for information on your specific practicals that you're planning to do later in the year, you can go to the examination information website on the State Examinations Commission. And underneath, there'll be on the drop-down menu, there'll be a little label for projects and practical coursework, which you can click on to find out what you need. Now, we have some more details in terms of coursework. So as some students have the option to be given extensions to their coursework, and this is for students who are very high risk, so they've been given permission by the department to stay home. Students who had to miss a few weeks of school perhaps due to either being considered a close contact of a COVID-19 case or themselves contracting COVID-19, or in some cases where the teacher had to stay home due to being a close contact or having COVID-19. All these 3 groups may be eligible for extensions. But it's important to note that there were some students who did not feel safe coming into school, perhaps they had a high-risk family member. These are not eligible for extensions. And if you're looking for one, you must have either departmental permission or the necessary medical documents. Now, if you are looking for an extension, your school makes this application to practicals@examinations.ie, that's the email address, and I'd really recommend getting started on that or looking into it if you're thinking this could be something you're eligible for. So as of now, the deadline for submitting coursework, so the most of an extension you can get will be in May. That's like the furthest you can get your deadline for. However, the department is going to give more clarity surrounding deadlines in a few days, we've been told. So if you're looking for this extension and you're looking for some more information, you can go onto the department website. This is under the project and practical sections. And there's a document called Exceptional Arrangements for the Authentication and Completion of Coursework Due to COVID-19. And all the information you should be looking for is in there. So the SEC, as I mentioned before, has indicated that there will be some flexibility with deadlines and that some more clarity will be coming in recent days. We actually got some more information from them last Friday. I'm sure some of you might have been aware, your schools might have chosen to share it with you, that some projects such as DCG, PE and economics have slightly extended deadlines. In the case of PE and economics, to get the online system up and running, it's been extended to sort of the middle of February. And of course, design and communication graphic deadline was the 15th of January, which, as we know, no one was in school on the 15th of January. So that we've been told that when students return to school, they will then have 8 days in which they have time to submit and complete their project coursework. Okay, I hope that was clear and that you've all learned a bit about what we're going to be doing now with the projects and practicals. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Eva. A lot of research went into that, and that was very informative. Thank you. Just to note, the document in which Eva referred to around exceptional arrangements in relation to completion of coursework, that is actually in our link tree in our bio on our Instagram, so you can find it there. In relation to the orals, they are currently going ahead, but the ISSU has been very clear in our statements recently that we believe that there needs to be an alternative plan to the state exams, and we need to start discussing what alternative options are there. We acknowledge that there is a lot of pressure being put on students, and we will be advocating for students based on our survey results and our consultation happening later this evening. The other thing I just want to note, we know that the communication with students is not student friendly. There's a lot of information that students don't know. It's very hard. You have to read a lot of long documents to find some simple information. we are going to actively be trying to create resources to inform students, but also we have informed the Department of Education that the communication needs to improve, and we have offered to input into that to try and make sure that their communications are more student friendly, because this is a problem for all of us. Next on the list coming in will be our Education Officer, Alicia O'Sullivan. Alicia and I sit on the advisory group for the state exams for 2021 planning, and she'll explain all of that to you now. Alicia?
Thanks, Ruben. Yeah, so my name is Alicia and I'm the Education Officer at ISSU. And obviously the state examinations are the biggest conversation right now, particularly for students obviously in examination years, 3rd and 6th years. So I'm just going to give you some background as to the work that ISSU have been ongoing, that has been ongoing for ISSU, and work we've actually done prior to the closing of schools. So the advisory group that Ruben spoke about, we were invited onto this advisory group that was set up in November, and this is the advisory group for the state exams. So this obviously consists of all the education stakeholders, including ourselves, and it's obviously hosted by the Department of Education and the State Examinations Commission. So prior to the closing of schools, we were actively working and advocating on behalf of students for the Leaving Cert and state exams of 2021. And one thing that we noted was that although changes had been made to the examinations at that point, that they definitely weren't enough. So to bring us up to this day, obviously things have drastically changed since we were talking about more changes before Christmas and around that period. And now what we are talking about, and ISSU stance, is that the traditional Leaving Cert cannot go ahead. And we advocated this through an open letter that was sent to Minister Foley and the department, in that the traditional Leaving Cert cannot go ahead in the opinion of ISSU, and that we are actively asking for a meeting of this advisory group, and that we would be discussing alternative options. So this meeting will be going ahead next week, and I suppose the purpose, and Ruben touched on it, of our survey, which has had massive response rate, and this evening our kind of consultation town hall, is that all of student input will take form of a report. This report will be released early next week, and that report will then be presented to the department and the minister, and also will be presented at the advisory group meeting before all of the education spokespeople. So you can be sure that it is very much student voice input that is going to be helping us to advocate for on behalf of you all in these meetings, and that it will be solely the input from the survey and tonight's consultation that the minister will directly see and will discuss. So this is obviously, it is a great position that we are in, that we can do this, and the department are very open to hearing what students have to say, and this is how it's going to be done. So for later on, for people joining us, I look forward to hearing the conversations, and hopefully that report will come out early next week for everyone to view. So that is the update on the state examinations.
Thank you, Alicia. Just to note, as the ISSU, we are in the advisory group. We do not decide what happens. We have the opportunity to advise and to try and influence what those decisions are. So that should give you some context. We will be bringing, as we said, the reports of all our consultations forwards. We are very keenly aware that this is a very worrying time for students, and we will be advocating that no student is left behind. It's very important that we are pragmatic and find a solution that works. And we want you to know that we'll be working over the next 2 to 3 days to get this report out to you as fast as possible. We will be representing your views clearly, strongly, and firmly, but with the mind of finding a solution that can actually take hold and that will work, that will get the people who are in Leaving Cert to college or to the world of work, and the people in Junior Cert onto the next stages of their lives, whether that be leaving school early or continuing on to the Leaving Cert. Coming up next is our Regional Officer, Adam Lamb from Monaghan. Adam, if you want to take it away.
Thanks, Ruben. Hi, everyone. I am Adam Lamb. I'm the Regional Officer for Cavan Monaghan. And as a 6th year myself, I am definitely very nervous and stressed for this year's state exams, the Leaving Certificate in particular. And I'll kind of be discussing the last topic, which is alternative assessment this year. And I think it's important to preface this by saying we must be respectful of each other's opinions and views on this. And especially we ask you to keep this mindful when we're in the town hall discussions later on today. So we just want to, I'll just kind of recap there that the ISSU stance, and we've made this very clear to the State Examinations Commission and in our open letter to Minister Foley and the Department of Education, that ISSU stance is the Leaving Certificate and the state exams can't go ahead in their traditional form as they would normally have done in, say, 2019 and years before. We acknowledge that there has been alternatives discussed among students on social media and across the general student body. We have also been discussing these in our meetings with our regional officers who represent you at a local level, and we've been discussing it within the ISSU. We've also been making it clear in our meetings, in the advisory group meetings that we've been calling for, in the meetings with the State Examinations Commission, that there needs to be an alternative to this traditional style of state exams. This needs to be implemented this year, and we need clarity on what alternative we'll be going forward with as soon as possible. So we've been calling for the State Exams Commission and the department to look at an alternative, and so we can work together for an alternative, because primarily of the mental duress that students are under, and also because many students are nervous of what will happen this year, and we want something that would be fair to all students because of the time that has been missed and because of the safety of students as well. We also have to keep very mindful that whatever alternatives are proposed, that we look at the consequences of the alternatives and how this can disadvantage some students. Any alternatives that have been brought forward by students in the likes of our survey or even our consultations tonight will be closely analysed by us to see how this can affect students. Will it be fair for students? What are the negative effects that it could have on certain students? We will look at all alternatives and we will ensure that we do come to a fair and equitable solution that doesn't disadvantage any students. The ISSU are clear that we need to find an alternative that leaves no student behind at all. We, I suppose, are clear that we don't want a situation like last year. We must learn from the mistakes of last year's calculated grades model, which was, I suppose, teachers estimating the grades that students would get if they sat their Leaving Cert, and then also national standardization. And there was issues there, such as a general grade inflation, which was an issue that caused CAO points to go up. And I suppose a consequence of that is many students didn't get the courses that they wanted, or I suppose maybe deserved. And there was also then an issue that some students or some teachers in schools were disproportionately inflating grades, and that caused other schools' grades to be deflated. So there's a big imbalance there. Some teachers were sticking very stringent to guidelines and some were not. So we also must learn from the fact that last year there was homeschooling students who were left behind, and these students were not able to go to college this year. And then I think what's important is that we address some of the other possible alternatives. There are alternatives such as continuous assessment that students have proposed, as alternatives such as having smaller, shorter exams throughout the next coming months. So there is other alternatives, and we will be looking at them all very in depth. And yes, we will also be looking at what issues need to be addressed. We encourage anyone coming on the town hall discussions this evening to look at the issues with any alternatives and how we can address those issues, because that is essential. And we do want to repeat that we will focus on solutions that will forget no student, and that will not disadvantage any student. We maintain that we want a solution, and we will work together with the department to come up with a solution that doesn't disadvantage any students this year, and that we know about our alternative as soon as possible.
Thank you, Adam. That we are coming towards the end of the information webinar part, and we'll be moving on to the actual interactive session in a few moments. What I have decided to add in, and I understand it is added in, but we have a bit of extra time, I'm going to read to you the letter that we have wrote to the Department of Education. I think it clearly outlines that we believe we've come to a point where we can no longer just full steam ahead, where we need to start asking ourselves, there are other options here and we need to consider them. Dear Minister Foley, Acordia, I'm writing on behalf of the Irish Second Level Students' Union to inform you of the ISSU's position on the state exams as of today, Tuesday, the 12th, January 2021. Last year, students, parents, teachers, the department and the State Exams Commission and members of the advisory group were subjected to an exhausting and prolonged period of stress, anxiety and fear. This cannot happen again. If we tether ourselves to the idea of trying to make the traditional exams go ahead at all costs, then we will repeat our mistakes from last year. It will cause students, stakeholders and the department another prolonged and unnecessary burden of fear, anxiety and pain. We need to ask ourselves what the weeks and months ahead will look like for us all, whilst reflecting on the strain the last few months have brought. Scotland and Wales have cancelled their exams in recognition of the mental duress that students and the entire system would face and we need to ask ourselves, have we given our situation as much consideration? The calls from teachers and students and parents that we're now hearing are not going to get any quieter. It is now clear to the Irish Second Level Students' Union that the traditional 2021 state exams cannot go ahead as normal. If we take a considered, pragmatic and compassionate decision now, we will avoid the detrimental impact of a rushed plan with minimal stakeholder input that we suffered last year. The loss of in-person tuition for many exam years for the month of January, paired with up to 3 months of loss of tuition in 2020, are important factors in bringing us forward to this position. But it is the duress, the mental damage and the anguish which students have endured during this pandemic that have prompted us to come to this conclusion. We can no longer justify it. We are about to subject the entire system and ourselves to this taxing strain again. Let us recognize the situation we are in and move forward with a clear path. Last year, we spent too long trying to justify holding the exams by hook or by crook. Let's not make the same mistake. The ISSU is calling on the Department of Education and all stakeholders to meet together to evaluate our options for alternative state exams and openly discuss the changes we must make. Please consider this letter and the merits of the point we have raised. Yours sincerely, Reuben Murray, on behalf of the National Students Executive of the Irish Second Level Students' Union. That letter was circulated to the Minister, to the State Exams Commission, to the department officials of the Department of Education, all the education and training boards across the country, all the stakeholder bodies, so all the different teachers and principals unions, all the political spokespersons in the different political parties, as well as the Oireachtas Education Committee. It also made its way to all the media as well. We have met with each of the members of the political parties, education spokespeople, made clear that this is not an issue that needs to be politicised. This is an issue in which they need to listen to students. This is from where our survey and this consultation and the messages you have sent us come into play. I'm going to hand over to Beth to explain how, oh, hang on, sorry, that's me, my mistake. Now I want to talk to you about how this survey and this consultation is going to take place, and more importantly, how it's going to affect the outcome. You will note in this letter, we have called for us to discuss alternative options and to make the conversation about that now. The reason we've said that is because the conversation is around how we're going to move ahead with the state exams as normal. We believe that we've gone past the point in time where that is feasible, and we need to start asking ourselves, what are the different options? We need to now decide what is the option that the ISSU is going to call for. What will we call as on the representatives of students to lobby for and to have the department implement? That is not for the National Students Executive to just decide themselves. That is not for the regional officers. That is for the student body. We are here to represent you. That is why we have put out a survey. Survey has had over 25,000 responses. They were covered all areas. They covered online learning, the return to school, the junior certificate, and the leaving certificate. Second to that, we're going to have the interactive session this evening, where we have over 200 students registered to discuss. If you can still register now, go to issu.ie and register now. Time is running out. We're going to compile the consultation, we are going to compile the results from both of these consultations and from each of the lessons we have learned from last year, paired with the individual responses we have received from students emailing us and from getting in contact on our Instagram. All of these will go together into a document, a report that we will be releasing next week as soon as possible. I cannot set an exact date and time. At this point in time, we are focused on getting the report done. I can guarantee it will be early next week. The results of this report will be presented to the Department of Education, to the Minister, to each of the political parties, the media, and at the advisory group meeting. This is what we will be representing, what the student body will have asked for, and we will work towards finding a solution in which we don't leave any student behind. We cannot do one thing for the benefit of one student while it's at the cost of another. And that is something we are adamant about, and I'm sure we all can agree on. We will be working with the other stakeholders. We have met with various stakeholders, the Principals Association, and we are organising meetings with others to discuss how we can move forward to ensure that no student is forgotten. And I think the one thing we can all say is that everyone has the best interests of students at heart. They all want the right thing to happen, but we feel that we need to go further, and the conversation needs to be about what changes we can make, because we cannot subdue students to the same. Now, we're now going to move on to the interactive section of the event. If you give me one moment, I just need to check if there's some information I have to have ready. Okay. If you can still hear me, you should have received a link. If you have registered for the event, you should have received a link to the specific event and Zoom call that you will be sent to. You will not have received a link if you have not returned a parental consent form. So you need to have returned a parental consent form if you're under 18. If you're over 18, you can just continue through. If you haven't gotten a link, if you've had any issues, or you haven't actually got your parental consent form sent, send them to ISSU.ie. That's what's important. The only final thing we have to say is, as we move on to this, to these Zoom calls, you need to join with your name, with your real name, the name that you joined and signed up to the actual event on. That way we can tell who's coming in. We have to verify the identity. You will need to keep your camera on so we can know who's there and that we can confirm it's a student. We ask that is a constructive conversation, that we have a degree of compassion and empathy for each other, and that we have a discussion because we are students and we want a forum in which to share our views. This is a chance now, and we want you all to be more involved. So you each signed up to a code of conduct, and please bear that in mind. I'm going to now bring this to a close, and what I will finish on is to say that come these meetings, you will have heard that Minister Foley has been in direct contact with myself and with the union. It has been made clear that the student voice and the student body is an essential stakeholder in this, and that they will be listened to. We will ensure that that is followed through. We will ensure that that is not put to one side. And if I'm honest, I don't think it will be. I do believe that the student voice is fully recognised as an essential part of this. Everyone seems to be waiting on this report to come out to see what it says. And we will ensure that we will represent the student voice properly and to the fullness of our ability. If there is one thing I want to reassure you of, it's that we have 44 regional officers who are working for you, 12 national executives as well. And we also have various working groups from the education to the sustainability, all working to make sure that we can represent students. There are well over 60, 70 even, students who are working day and night to try and represent you. You can be part of that. In the resources we share the information we have, share the resources. We want to make sure that students know their rights, that students know that they can be an active part of this process, and more importantly, that students know we're here. We're here before the Leaving Cert was an issue. We're here after the Leaving Cert was an issue, before school closures and after that. We're here to make sure that the voice is an able and proper representation in schools across the country. So don't forget that. Our Instagram is ISSU4U and our website is ISSU.ie. You can join there as well. You just need your student council to vote. Without further ado, I'm going to end this live. I'd like to thank everyone who has tuned in. And more importantly, I would ask, don't let this be the last time you look at the ISSU or you look to us. Engage with us again. You're a student. If you don't stand up for your voice, no one can. We are your peers. Help us in that. Thank you, everybody. Good evening, and see you all in the interactive. Good night.